course, one of the areas that we are watching closely as well is the economy. And we have seen, I think, and there was a very informative report from TD Bank that I'm sure a number of you watching, but called The Tale of Two Recoveries, just from last week, that talked about and compared the relative response and recoveries that we're seeing both north and south of the Canadian border. Looking more broadly, we've been seeing that there have been a range of responses across the globe in terms of the health response to COVID-19, and then the necessary supports that have been put in place, and the economic response from different levels of government at the federal and the subnational level. Interesting in that report was a fairly close comparison of the relative benefits of the approach in the United States and the, some would say, more cautious approach when it came to the health issue here in Canada. And I recommend it to those of you who haven't reviewed it, because what it demonstrated is that on the numbers, and they look at a variety of metrics, but in particular in terms of return of employment, which of course is a critical metric, but return of employment, the approach we've taken in Ontario, the approach we've taken in Canada, which again has been methodical, has focused particularly on the health issues related to COVID-19 and making sure that workplaces are safe so that employees and customers can return to work. That thus far, according to their judgment, that has proven a better approach. This is important because, as I've said a number of times, we are in the most difficult economic circumstances, certainly in my lifetime. And no two recessions are the same. But the one thing that we can look at is that there are a variety of experiences when it comes to previous recessions. In the case of Ontario, if you look at the last three recessions, in the most, the least difficult, it took approximately 22 months to return to employment levels pre-recession. And in the case of the most difficult one in the early 90s, it took over 80 months to return to the employment levels that we saw in the previous to that recession. So what we're signaling is that we need to be prepared. We need to understand the difference between this recession and others, particularly in terms of the underlying cause, which is a global health crisis, a global pandemic, which clearly has impacts in Ontario, but also has broader impacts in terms of important trading partners and in terms of the global economy. But it also means that we need to make sure that the solutions that all levels of government are putting forward are sensitive to the unique situation that we're finding in this particular recession, and as a result of this global healthcare crisis. So in our planning, going back over the last 8 months since we rolled out our first response to COVID-19, we have made sure that we have that balance. That we have a balance between important programs that are fundamentally focused on protecting the health of Ontarians, investing in our public health care system, over $270 million in additional public health and community health support infrastructure, our hospital system in terms of reinforcing the core infrastructure, but also adding capacity, particularly in terms of intensive and acute care beds, making sure that we provided additional supports for some of our most vulnerable, over $500 million of support, particularly targeted at our long-term care sector, and making sure that we're also investing in making sure that we have the resources to make sure workplaces are safe. So a program that will create over 500 workplace safety inspectors, more workplace safety inspectors than we've ever had in the province of Ontario. But again, a vital link in that program to protect Ontario businesses and protect Ontario citizens. We've also had a number of programs to support individuals, going back to a program that provided $200 for every student or every child, $250 for special needs children. Support with regards to electricity pricing, again, very vital. Doubling something called the Gains benefit, which helped our 196,000 most vulnerable seniors with a doubling of that benefit. Removing interest charges and removing other late payment charges when it came to things like OSAP and property tax, workers' compensation charges, and other government taxes. So a number of areas of direct support for communities, individuals. We've also focused on what we need to do to make sure that our communities are in a place to recover. So one thing that I know Minister Fedeli is very proud of, and as a government we're very proud of, is the extent to which Ontario businesses and industries pivoted from their current production to make sure that they were producing vital PPE. And in that, we supported that through something called the Ontario Together Fund, through our work to make sure that we'll be manufacturing vital protective equipment here in Ontario, whether that's face shields or respirator masks, or gloves or gowns. Much of this production now is possible here in Ontario, and we've secured our supply chains to make sure that as we go forward, we'll be able to provide the necessary PPE for our healthcare sector, for our long-term care sector, and also, as is required, for businesses as they take on the mandate to make sure that they protect their customers.